All right, let's get into it. Today, we're digging into the really fascinating worlds of culture and identity. And we're going to do it by looking at the work of two incredible thinkers who just happen to share a last name, Edward T. Hall and Stuart Hall. They gave us these very different, but as you'll see, perfectly complementary ways of understanding ourselves and, well, everyone else.
You know that feeling, right? You're talking with someone, maybe even a friend or a coworker, and you understand every single word they're saying, but you still get this sense that you're just not connecting. It's like there's this invisible wall between you. Well, what if I told you that what you're feeling is completely normal, and there's a really powerful way to explain exactly why that happens?
The reason for that disconnect, that feeling of missing something, is that most of what makes up a culture is totally hidden from view. Seriously, it's just like an iceberg. The part you see is tiny compared to what's going on underneath the surface. And it's that massive hidden part that can cause the biggest waves. Okay, so let's dive right into this idea with our first Hall, the American anthropologist Edward T. Hall. He's the one who came up with this brilliant iceberg metaphor, and it's a real game changer for understanding the hidden parts of any culture. Now get ready for this number, because it's a big one. According to Hall's model, a full 90%, 90, of what makes a culture tick, its rules, its core values, pretty much its entire operating system, is completely invisible to an outsider. And this chart just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? That tiny little sliver at the top, just 10%, that's the stuff we actually notice. You know, the food, the music, the language, but that massive chunk underneath, that's what's really driving all the behavior. It's the silent, invisible majority. So let's break this down even more. Above the water, you've got all the obvious stuff. Food, clothing, music. It's the fun, surface-level culture. But below the water, that's where the heavy stuff is. We're talking core values, deep-seated beliefs, ideas about family, and even how you're supposed to communicate. And here's the kicker. When someone challenges the stuff above the water, it's no big deal. But if you accidentally bump into one of those invisible values, it can feel like a personal attack, because that stuff is so deeply tied to who we are. So what Edward Hall is really telling us is this. If we genuinely want to connect with people from another culture, we have to stop just looking at the tip of the iceberg. We've got to get curious. We need to try and understand that vast, invisible 90% that's shaping everything we actually see on the surface. And this leads us to a really fascinating question. I mean, if this huge, hidden part of culture is shaping all our interactions, how in the world does it shape our own sense of self? Edward Hall gives us the what, but to really understand the how, we have to turn to our second thinker, Stuart Hall, and explore this very personal thing we call identity. This question, right here, is the perfect bridge, because that invisible 90%, well, it's not just out there in society, it's in here, inside every single one of us. It's forming the very foundation of who we think we are, and that is exactly where Stuart Hall comes into the picture. All right, let's meet our second Hall, the cultural theorist Stuart Hall. He took this idea of deep hidden influences and he applied it directly to identity. And his argument was radical. He said, our sense of self isn't some fixed, solid thing we're born with. No way. Instead, it's something that's always, constantly being made. I absolutely love this quote. It's just so dynamic, you know? It completely pushes back on that old idea of needing to find your one true self. Stuart Hall says, forget that. We are always in a state of becoming. We're always changing, being shaped by our history, our experiences, and, of course, by that deep cultural water that Edward Hall was talking about. Stuart Hall actually called this identity as a production. He argued that our identity is literally produced, it's constructed by the stories we're told, the media we watch, and the social systems we live inside. So it's not some static thing, it's an active, ongoing process. You're never really done. So let's break this down just a little bit more. Hall said our identity gets built through representation. That's all the images and language that surround us every day. Think about it. The movies you watch, the news you see, the conversations you have, they all add little pieces to your sense of self. And then there's something he called discourse, which is basically the powerful, unwritten rules in a society that tell us what's normal or true. What this all means is that our identity is this constant negotiation with all these powerful outside forces. It's never static, it's always in motion. Okay, so we have two Halls. We have Edward Hall, who gives us this amazing structure of culture, the iceberg, and then we have Stuart Hall, who shows us how dynamic our own identity is within that culture. So the big question is, How do these two ideas actually fit together? This table, honestly, makes it all so clear. Edward Hall is focused on the big picture, the shared aspects of culture, and his iceberg model is a super practical tool for understanding people different from us. Stuart Hall, on the other hand, zooms right in on our personal identity. His idea of production gives us this critical awareness of how we're being shaped by these larger forces. So you see, they're not fighting each other. They're just two different but equally important lenses for looking at the human experience. And look, if there is one key thing to take away from all this, it is this right here. Think of Edward Hall's iceberg as the map. It shows us the deep, hidden cultural ocean we are all swimming in. Then, think of Stuart Hall's work as the compass and the rudder for our own personal boat, helping us navigate our own ever-changing journey of identity on that ocean. One gives us the map, the other helps us steer. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Stuart Hall tells us our identity is never finished. It is always a work in progress, always a production. So the final question isn't just, who are you? It's something much more interesting. With every choice you make, every story you tell yourself, and every interaction you have, who are you in the process of becoming?